Let us begin the word problem by reading it out loud. Andrew and Logan evenly split the cost for a new television. However, they returned it and bought a less expensive television with their refunded money. After spending a combined total of $280 on the less expensive television, Andrew and Logan each had $60 left over. How much did the more expensive television cost? Let us begin our strategy for problem solving by analyzing the problem. When analyzing the problem, the first thing we want to identify is the question being asked. In this case, the question is, how much did the more expensive television cost? Now, normally we usually assign a variable right off the bat, but what we're going to do now is we're going to take a little bit different approach. So what we're going to do is we're going to analyze the problem and then combine everything at the end. So what I mean by that is, let's see what else information we could extract. So we know that they spent a combined total of $280 on the less expensive television. And then when they got their refund, they still had an additional $60 left over each. So we're going to go ahead and create two costs, or two variables, I should say. So we're going to go ahead and use the variables x and y for this problem, and again, you can use any two variables that you want. And we're going to let x represent the amount each spent on the less expensive television, and we're going to let y represent the amount each spent on the more expensive television. So here we go. So we know that for the less expensive television, they spent $280. This is what they spent on the less expensive television. Now, each paid a certain amount, and they paid the same amount. So therefore, whatever amount they paid, which is x, we have to double that or multiply it by 2 in order to account for the fact that they each paid that amount. So there we go. That's going to be our first equation. 280 is equal to 2x. Now for our second equation, that's going to be based off the amount they had left over. So we know that they each spent more money on the more expensive television. So the way we're going to organize this is we're going to let y, which is the amount each spent on the more expensive television, we're going to let that equal the amount they paid on the least expensive television, which is x. But now we have to account for the fact that they had $60 left over. So that means that the more expensive television was $60 more than the least expensive television. So these are going to be our two equations. So now let's go ahead and solve the equations. So when solving the equations, again, start off with the original equations found in step 3. So we're going to have 280 is equal to 2x. And we're going to have y is equal to x plus 60. So now for the first equation, notice that we're just one step away from solving for the variable x. Right now, we are currently multiplying x by 2, so we don't want to eliminate that multiplication. The only way to do so is by division, so we'll go ahead and divide both sides by 2, which is the number we want to eliminate. Therefore, on the right-hand side, we have a 2 divided by a 2, which simplifies out to 1x, or simply x. And then on the left-hand side, we're going to have 280 divided by 2. Once you carry out that division, you'll see that you end up with 140. So now, the nice thing now is that we actually know the value of x. We know x is equal to 140. So what we're going to do is we're going to substitute that in to the second equation in place of x. So the equation is y is equal to x, but we know that's going to be equal now to 140. And we still have to add 60 to that. So then we end up with y is equal to 140 plus 60. Once we do the math, we end up with 200 as our result. So now we know the value of y, and we know the value of x. The question is, does that answer what was asked of us to find? So keep in mind that we were asked how much did the more expensive television cost. So what we found is the value of y, and we know that y represents the amount each spent on the more expensive television. The key word here is the word each. So if each spent 200 and they combine their money together to split the cost evenly, that means we're going to have to double the 200. So then what that actually means is that the more expensive television ended up costing $400. So let's go ahead and list that in our conclusion. And therefore we'll go ahead and state the following. The more expensive television cost $400. Now let us go ahead and check the result. So we're going to go ahead and do is start up with the original equations. So we end up with 280 is equal to 2x. And we have y is equal to x plus 60. But now that we know the values of x and y, we could go ahead and substitute these values in. So we'll end up with 280 is equal to 2 times x, which is 140. So on the left side, we have 280. And on the right hand side, once we carry out this multiplication, you'll see that you end up with 280 as well. So therefore, the left hand side is equal to the right hand side. So we have a true statement. That's a good start. Now on to the second equation, we know y is equal to 200. And also we know x is equal to 140. So we'll substitute both of those into our equation. We still have to add 60. So on the left hand side, we simply bring down the 200 because there's nothing left to simplify there. And on the right hand side, once you add 60 to 140, you'll see as well that you end up with 200. And therefore, both our solutions are equal to one another. So we have a true statement, and that verifies that our solutions are indeed correct.